means
The reference in the I am told that the reference in the Quran is ummah, which describes a Muslim community,
Correct.
a single Muslim community.
Correct. But that is Dar al-Islam. Am I correct? The Ummah is a Dar al-Islam.
Islam.
Yeah.
Darul Islam. Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Is
Mr.
that
President.
correct? And anything outside of Dar al-Islam is Dar al-Harb.
That is right, Mr. President. Yes.
Dar al-Harb. What is Dar al-Harb?
All the communities that exist outside Dar Islam, which is non-Islamic communities.
In other words, those are subject to conquest. Am I correct? You can ask the people who are expert in Islam.
Well, I think that I suppose that the concept was the creation of a Muslim empire.
Empire, yeah.
And should that empire, as an imperialist system,
That is embedded in the Quran.
is embodies within it expansion. Hence, you do not have an empire if you do not slowly include other communities that previously belonged outside your empire. So yes, Mr.
And anything that is within Dar al-Harb is subject to conquest. Once you are, since we are talking, no offense about this. We are talking about this academically. Once you are subjected to conquest, you are either converted. Am I correct? Converted. Or you can ask for protectionism. Correct? Or you are subject to elimination. Correct? Those are the three stages. Nothing more, nothing less. Either you are converted, subject to tributes perhaps, protection and tribute, or you are totally exterminated. That is the jihadism that we are seeing in the world today. Okay? Is that correct?
That would seem to be a proper interpretation, Mr. President.
Okay. So, if that is so, will this entity become Dar al-Islam?
I I believe no, because it would the way that we have the way that the measure is written, it will be a pluralistic community within the autonomous region, which allows for the Christian communities and all the other whatever faiths existing in the autonomous region to continue to exist.
But the fact that we have provided in this proposed measure that the term Bangsamoro shall refer only to those people who profess Islamic faith makes it a Dar al-Islam.
It is the definition of the Bangsamoro people, but not necessarily applies to the Bangsamoro region. It does not necessarily, the definition as I understand it of the Bangsamoro people merely seeks to define who can be considered Bangsamoro people. Again, this was a very contentious issue because why was there a need to, the question that was raised was why is there a need for you to define Bangsamoro people as separate from any of the other inhabitants within Mindanao, for that matter. But again, the argument that was made was that It was merely to strengthen the identity of the Bangsamoro people and for it to be recognized not only by Bangsamoro people themselves but by everybody else.
That is our interpretation. But suppose they will not follow that interpretation, what will be our recourse?
I believe that if they do not follow that interpretation, they will fall foul of the law, Mr. President. They will fall foul of the law. And again, the pluralistic nature is something that we had sought to preserve.
The life of the law is not logic, but experience. So
I differ.
we better be very, very careful. Well, how? If we cannot even handle the Mama Sapano 44 problem, how can we handle a bigger problem like this when it will confront us?
Certainly, Mr. President, there are many. The context within which we are discussing this measure has become a global, a very complicated and a globalized context, and perhaps we have been a little bit blinkered when we have been discussing this, in that we have not really spoken much about the influence of the other extremist jihadist forces that are presently fighting around the world. And again, the phenomenon of ISIS is something that comes to mind, that immediately comes to mind.
Excuse me. Are you true?
Yes, yes, sir.
Having in mind all these things that we are discussing, assuming for the sake of argument that we enact this law and create this entity, what will be the status of the indigenous people covered within the scope of the territory that we are granting to this political entity, as far as the relation to those people who profess the faith of Islam?
Well, this is something, again, Mr. President, because again, what the original language would seem to imply, that the Bangsamoro government and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region only applies to those who profess the Islamic faith. And that is why we have tried to introduce into other provisions of the measure guarantees that maintain the rights and the privileges, the ancestral lands of the so-called Lumads, or the non-Muslim indigenous peoples within the boundaries of the autonomous region.
But maybe I give full faith and credit to the words of those people who propose this now. But they are finite. Like me, they will die someday. They will disappear. If we talk of time, a century from now, and we have this law, do you think those people will remember our debates here now? At that point, what will be the sanctions that the national government can impose upon this Bangsamoro Autonomous Region if it will not comply with the strictures and limitations and restrictions of this proposed measure? That is what I'm concerned about.
Well, the assumption is, or the principle, now rather than the assumption, because the assumption, it was not assumed at the very beginning, but the principle that we have tried to embody here is at the most fundamental level, all the inhabitants within and without the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, whatever their tribal or ethnic or religious color should be, are citizens of the Philippines, and with the attendant rights and privileges that every citizen enjoys. But again, if we are talking specifically about the Lumans, we have, as for their protection, the EPIRA law. And again, we have sought to introduce guarantees that at the very least, that none of the privileges, none of the recognitions of ancestral lands, for example, none of the rights on those lands by the Lumads is as granted and as stated in the EPIRA law will be diminished or violated in any way.
Yeah. Now, we'll go on, and so that they will not say that we are delaying this. As I said, Section 15, Article 10 of the Constitution is place, religious, and ethnic specific. It says, among others, there shall be created autonomous regions in Muslim Mindanao and in the Cordilleras. Section 15 of Article 10 of the Constitution speaks of Muslim and Mindanao and Cordilleras and nothing more. It does not mention, much less include, indigenous cultural communities except those in the Cordilleras. Under what authority then can Congress broaden the power delegated to it by the sovereign people?
I believe that my reading of the language is that the distinctive historical and cultural heritage, economic and social structures, other relevant characteristics apply not only to the Cordilleras, but also to Muslim Mindanao. However, because it speaks of Muslim, then we are addressing merely the Muslim area, what is commonly accepted to be the Muslim areas in Mindanao, and that is why the Constitution has already introduced a distinction from the Cordilleras, in that the followers of the Islamic faith are specifically mentioned, and that their autonomy is guaranteed by that mandate that is granted Congress by Section 15.
Bear in mind that the Constitution is very specific in terms of the faith involved, the ethnicity involved, and the powers to be granted. That's how they were aware of the political implication of what they are providing in the Constitution, the framers of this Constitution. And that is why they were very careful in using terms that limits the meaning. So anyway, I just want to get the reaction of the author so that they will be recorded for the consideration of future interested parties who may be involved in interpreting what we are doing today. My problem here is, where does Congress draw its authority to transcend? We are transcending actually the limits of the power delegated to us by the sovereign people. How can we do this?
Certainly,
this is my problem.
There have been, in the original, certainly in the draft Bangsamoro Basic Law, it has been pointed out several times by many constitutionalists and legal experts that yes, there had been, there were areas where clearly there was an attempt to go beyond the powers as granted in the creation of the autonomous region. We have tried in the substitute bill to bring it back in line so that the bill is once again legal.
Now, the Section 4 opens with a sentence which says, those who at the time of conquest and colonization of the Philippines by the Spaniards considered themselves natives or original inhabitants of Mindanao, whether of mixed or full blood, provided that the foregoing profess the faith of Islam shall have the right to identify themselves as Bangsamoro. Spouses and their descendants at their option shall also be a part of the Bangsamoro region. This provision shall not in any way derogate from the provisions of Article 4 of the 1987 Constitution. May I know the meaning of this Section 4?
It should say Bangsamoro people, not Bangsamoro Constitution.
My problem here is we're going back into history, and how can we possibly know the feeling and choice of the natives of Mindanao at the time of conquest and colonization of the Philippines by the Spaniards at this time in our present era? And then there are many people who will be affected, even the spouses, who are the mixed bloods, full blood, who are the full blood and the mixed blood. How do we determine whether a person has mixed blood or full blood? Can you distinguish one blood from another blood?
It probably refers to, Mr. President, to the genealogy of the individual, as whether they can show some connection to a accepted Muslim individual, and by consanguinity or by affinity, The reason, I think, also is that it is, again, it had been conceived, or the explanation given to us that it was conceived, the section was conceived merely to strengthen the identity of the Bangsamoro, not to provide them with any special privileges, any greater powers, any difference in rights and privileges as enjoyed by any other citizen of the Philippines.
You know, my problem with the wording of this section is that those who at the time of the conquest and colonization of the Philippines by the Spaniards considered themselves natives or original inhabitants of Mindanao. In other words, there is a tendency to cover the entire Mindanao. This.
Quite so, and in fact, as a matter of fact, Mr. President, it also, the original included Palawan.
Yeah.
In the description of the Bangsamoro peoples, and again, that was rejected because that description was rejected because there was no way to actually determine, even the present inhabitants who do profess the Muslim faith, that they can clearly show that they have been their families or their bloodline extends back to the Spanish, the period of Spanish colonization. When we asked, how do you now determine who are the Bangsamoro people? Well, that is something for each individual to determine for themselves whether or not they would like to be self-ascribed as themselves as Bangsamoro people. And again, it was just included to strengthen the identity of the Muslims in Muslim Mindanao.
And then the last sentence deals with citizenship, because Article 4 of the 1987 Constitution deals with, I think, with the citizens of the Republic. So this can confuse the mind, and if we are no longer around, interpreting this provision might, if this provision is not well crafted and clarified well, then it could be a subject of discord and conflict again.
In fact, that is why the last sentence was something that we included, to make it very clear that all inhabitants, all of the possibly those that will be included as Bangsamoro people, and anyone else who are not included Bangsamoro people will still be considered citizens of the Philippines, again, with their attendant rights and privileges.
Spouses and their descendants. If the husband and the wife are both Islamic, then there's no problem. If the one of the couple is an indigenous person and Islamic believer, then you start to have a problem. Or if they are Christian and Muslim, a possibility of intermarriage in the past, then there will be a problem.
And that's why I believe that is why it has been left open-ended, and it states spouses and their descendants at their option, and hence the individual, as I described before.
As I told you before, either you are converted or you become a slave, or no more slavery, no? Or you pay tribute, or you are exterminated. That is the doctrine. Oh.
But again, the fundamental principle underlying all of this is the acceptance of the Islamic, of those who are following the Islamic faith in the Philippines, that they are, in fact, not part of a separate state, not part of a separate political entity, but are citizens of the Republic of the Philippines.
You become a Bangsamoro only if you believe in the Islamic faith.
By this description, that is correct, Mr. President.
Yeah. So this is the Muslim Mindanao. But then they embrace people who are non-believer of the Islamic faith. So this is an expansion that is, I think, unauthorized by the Constitution.
The former professors have the right to identify.
Mr. President, I think I will stop my interpellation for now. I will come to Article 2 of the Bangsamoro identity on Monday.
Ready?
Well, thank you, Senator Enrile. We therefore suspend consideration of Senate Bill 2894 under Committee Report number 200. And Senator Enrile has manifested he will continue his interpellation on Monday, November 9.
Mr. President.
So suspended. The Assistant Minority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, for the record, I was informed by the Minority Leader that, yes, he will continue on Monday, and as much as possible, he would want to finish without any interference from any of us. That's why I will suspend my interpellation until he finishes. I was informed that Senator Miriam Santiago wishes to interpellate also next week, but we will try to get in touch with their office so that we can coordinate the proper day.
Right.